introduce you to some of my co-presenters today. So my name is Yoon Choi, and I'm a postdoctoral researcher at Cornell University's Social Media Lab in the Department of Communication. I also have here with me Amanda Purington from the Act for Youth program, and also Dr. Ellen Zhou from the Cornell Social Media Lab as well. So we are going to be taking turns presenting each part of this webinar today. So before we get started, let me give you a brief overview of some of the topics that we're going to be covering today in the webinar. So first of all, we'll talk kind of briefly about how teenagers use social media and maybe some trends of teenage social media use. And then we'll dive right into talking about social media test drive. So I'll introduce to you some of the history and the pedagogy and research behind social media test drive, our program. And then we will be doing a walkthrough of a social media test drive module, and then talk about how you can implement the program in your youth development groups or in your classroom or any other setting. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about how you can get involved in our work, as well as save some time for Q&A. Okay, so let me get started. I'm sure many of you have worked with teenagers who are absolutely fascinated with social media, obsessed even. But how do we really know what goes on when teenagers use social media? So teenagers were asked the following question: which comes closer to the truth? If parents knew what actually happens on social media, they'd be a lot more worried about it, versus parents worry too much about teens' use of social media. Now, you can notice that the distribution between the two responses is actually about equal. So 54% saying parents would be worried versus 46% saying parents worry too much. And either way, whether we are too worried about their social media use or there is actually something to worry about, I think the best thing we can do as educators or as parents or guardians is to actually prepare teenagers for some of the risks or opportunities they might face when they are on social media. So when teenagers start using social media, there are both risks and opportunities. So on the one hand, we might have some risk factors like, when teenagers first start using social media can also be when they first start exhibiting mental health symptoms. Also, while teenagers are officially, legally restricted from signing up for a social media site until they're 13 years old, some teenagers either get past those restrictions or just, enter a fake birthday. And also, there aren't really appropriate restrictions for age-appropriate content. So even for 13-year-olds and above, there might be some content that is not appropriate. Also, in light of the COVID pandemic, teenagers have seen an increase in screen use and device use for school, for social activities, and also since they are unable to socialize with their peers offline and in school, they might start using social media as a venue to do that in. However, there can be also all kinds of opportunities for teens joining social media. So they can kind of use social media as a venue for emotional needs and, social needs, as well as social media being an opportunity for, parental engagement or, a way for parents to connect with their children and so on. So there are risks and opportunities, and we would like to minimize risks while preparing students to take these opportunities and really engage with the opportunity part. So this is where our program, Social Media Test Drive, kind of comes into play. So Social Media Test Drive is an educational tool or program that allows students to learn about digital citizenship in a social media simulation. So I'll be talking a little more about the different features of Social Media Test Drive, but the key here is that it's a simulated social media site. So it provides teens with an opportunity to practice and learn some of these key skills before they actually sign up for a social media site, a real social media site. So what is exactly Social Media Test Drive? So as I mentioned, it's a social media simulation. So the platform actually looks very much like a real social media site, maybe very similar to Instagram or Facebook. But again, it's simulated in the sense that they are not actually talking to real people on the internet or on social media sites. And all of the content that is on the simulation has been created by researchers, us at Cornell University Social Media Lab. And another aspect of the platform is that it combines educational material with the simulated social media experience. So later in the demo, you'll see how we overlay certain educational content, such as those key skills or key terms and concepts, along with a site that looks very similar to what students would encounter on a real social media site. Currently, we have 12 modules or lessons focused on certain digital citizenship topics. So we have topics like privacy or how to be an upstander when you see cyberbullying, or how to have healthy social media habits, and also a couple of modules on news literacy as well. Each module takes about 20 to 25 minutes to complete, and students can either work on them on their own or as part of a class activity, or even as an activity at home with their parent or their guardian. Social Media Test Drive was actually developed based on conversations with youth development educators. So this social media simulation platform was something that we had previously used in our lab for research. But at one of, I think maybe in 2016 or 17, we showed this research platform to some educators at a youth development conference. And they got very excited about it. So the students they were working with are very interested in social media, and they really want to go on social media, but there's no good way for youth to actually practice social media skills without signing up for a real social media site, which could be risky or dangerous even. So we adapted this social media simulation research platform into an educational platform so that youth can experiment and learn about digital citizenship in a relatively safe and private environment. Let me tell you a little more about some of the things that I think really makes TestDrive a unique program. So the platform was co-developed by us at the Cornell Social Media Lab and our partners, Common Sense Education. Now, some of you may have heard of Common Sense Education. They have a set of digital citizenship lessons that you can implement in your classroom, and they have many years of experience in the digital citizenship education area. So we were very lucky to be working with them and to, take advantage of their expertise. The research background of social media test drive comes from experiential learning. So we really want students to learn by having a pretty authentic experience of being on a real social media site. So we provide this simulated environment for students to actively experiment and experience social media, and also to reflect on those experiences and kind of solidify their learning by reflecting. We also have a number of topics or digital dilemmas even, or challenges we can call them. And we allow students to learn about these different skills and topics and knowledge areas, and also to practice them in a safe and private environment. This is actually a screenshot of what TestDrive would look like if you used it on a mobile phone. So there is a timeline, a social media timeline that looks pretty much similar to Instagram. And as I mentioned before, all of the content on this social media site, the fake social media site, is scripted. So we, the researchers at Cornell Social Media Lab, have created the content, and it's populated with fake users that we call bots. So youth learners can interact with this social media timeline. They can make their own posts or create their own comments, or even like the fake posts. But this content is not saved anywhere. So after a learner finishes the module, all of the posts and the comments they have made are erased. So nothing can, as opposed to a real social media site, nothing they post on social media test drive is saved, or, can be screen captured, or it's pretty private and protected. Another thing that I would like to point out on this screenshot, and again, we will see a live demo of each module later on, is that we kind of overlay the educational content in addition to having the simulated social media site. So there are different sections in the lesson where students learn and also practice, as well as kind of reflect on their experiences. These are some of the main educational goals of social media test drive. So our main goal is to kind of solidify students' understanding of key digital citizenship terms and concepts and skills, but also to kind of expose and introduce students to a social media interface that they are most likely to encounter when they actually join a social media site. So we kind of highlight certain features that are common to many different social media sites, like the option to report or flag posts, or the feature to change their privacy settings, or even to create an account on a social media site. So we model these different kinds of features and teach students how they can use those features to be safe and responsible on social media. And as I mentioned before, the platform allows students to practice and learn about pro-social behaviors on social media in an interactive but also safe and protected setting. Now I'm going to hand it over to Ellen, and she'll talk a little bit about the structure of our modules.
Okay, thank you, Yun. So maybe I should share my screen. Okay, So in each module of the test drive, we have 4 different activities to kind of scaffold students to learn the concepts and skills that we expect them to learn. The first part or the first section is the tutorial. Here we introduce students to the learning objectives, the terms and the definitions of the terms. In the second section, we will have the guided activities where we model appropriate behaviors and actions. In section 3, we'll have a free play section where we provide no guidance at all, and students can explore the timeline, giving comments, flagging the post, or do whatever action they want. And in section 4, students will be given a chance to reflect on their actions in exploring the timeline and also the concept and the skills they apply into the exploration. So I will dive into one particular module and walk you through these 4 different sections. So if you go to the social media test drive website, you see this page, and then you can click try a module. Here, this page will show all of our modules in the social media test drive so far. We have 12 complete modules as of today that covers different areas of digital literacy or digital citizenship skills that we want to teach. For example, here we have a module about creating accounts and passwords, the module about ups and downs in social media, responding to breaking news, how to protect private information, how to track one's digital footprint, how to identify cyberbullying, and how to learn to be an upstander, and how to cultivate healthy social media habits, how to manage online identities, how to protect privacy, and how to react to ads and scams and phishing, and also some news literacies. Next, I will walk you through one of the modules, which is the ups and downs of social media. So when we click into this module, this page will show the 4 different stages that I just explained. So stage 1, students will learn the key ideas. In stage 2, they will given an opportunity to practice the social media skills. In section 3, they will given a timeline to explore. And in the final section, they're expected to reflect on their actions on the timeline and the concept they learned throughout the module. So let's click here and get started. In this page, we will have the kind of learning objectives. So social media can come with ups and downs. The benefit is that you can connect with friends and family and sharing what you do or what you think and staying up to date. But on the downside, it can be distracting, and it will make you feel like you have to check all the time. And also when seeing others sharing their lives, people might feel this pressure of, not living an exciting life as others, which can be quite depressing. So in this module, students will learn how social media make students think and how they can use it in a positive and balanced way. When we click next, 3 key concepts will pop up. So these are the concepts we expect students to learn throughout this module. So if we click into each one, it will show the definition of the concept. So for red flag feeling, here is when someone happens on social media that make you feel uncomfortable, worry, or anxious. These are some of the red flag feelings. And oversharing is the tendency to overshare one's personal feelings, information, or experience that might make someone feel uncomfortable or regretful later. And media balance is use media in a way that feels healthy and balanced with other life activities. So after reviewing these key concepts, students can click into the next part of the tutorial. So in this page, we will kind of model students we kind of model the appropriate activity. We kind of model the appropriate actions about how to identify red flag feelings and how to avoid oversharing and balance social media use with other activities. So here shows some kind of learning guidance. Social media can help you stay connected with friends. It's a great place to learn and explore. But sometimes people might feel anxious or worried when they see, for example, their friends hanging out, but they're not invited. So that is kind of the red flag feelings that we should be looking out for. So for example, in this post, when you get the red flag feelings, you might be tempted to share how you feel on social media. So this is a post that exemplify oversharing. So it says, it really sucks when I was not invited to this party. I guess I know who my real friends are now. So students will see this post and click, they can click, oh, sorry, go back. So students can click into the, I'm sorry, this is not the section with the quiz. And here is the post of red flag feeling, just taking a break and logging off to do something else you enjoy that might help you feel better. So this is the strategy that we need to, we encourage students to employ to combat those red flag feelings. So after completing this section, we will direct students into the second section, which is the practice section. Here, we kind of give students a more specific example of what is red flag feeling and what is oversharing, and to like kind of like exemplify the way of balancing their social media use. So here the scenario is, this is Nick's social media timeline. He just got back from school and is checking out his feed. So we can click the blue dots on this page. It will show more scaffolding script where students can see the specific details of the example. So Nick's friend Liam and Vanessa post that have posted that they're hanging out, but Nick was not invited. We can click the post and students can see this pop-up window to kind of reflect on what feelings he will have after seeing this kind of post. He might feel sad or jealous or even angry. And what kinds of things could Nick do to make himself feel better? So he can do activity he enjoys, spend time with family and friends, or simply take a break from social media. So after finishing this post, students can scroll down to look for more blue dots. So here is a post showing Nick's other friend is Priscilla, is hanging out with her family in a Disney World. So if you click into the blue dots, seeing everything his friends are posting might make Nick feel like his life isn't as interesting or fun. So this might also raise red flag feelings. So what strategies we need to use to combat those red flag feelings? So Nick can always take a break from social media. He can meet up with friends or family or do something else he enjoys, like riding his bike. So in this guided activity section, we kind of provide these scaffolding scripts and this specific scenario to exemplify the concept we're teaching in the previous section. And if we click continue, this page will be a review of those key concepts we have just covered in the previous guided activity. Okay, so moving into section 3, which is exploring the timeline. Here, students will be given a chance to explore the social media feed without any guidance. Before we jump into this section, students can choose a topic that they're interested in. So for example, here I would just choose music. Here is kind of the background of the timeline. So now we're getting into the TestDrive timeline. You can read what others have posted, respond, and make your own post. Here's the background before we get started. Imagine that you're looking at Jeremy's social media timeline. Jeremy has two friends, it's Kiki and Franklin, whom he met at a music camp. So look out for the posts from Kiki and Franklin. You may see other posts from other friends who could cause Jeremy to feel anxious or worried. Click the post to think about how Jeremy might feel and what he can do about it. So here is the page that simulates the social media environment. The students can scroll down and see posts of different people. And also they can make their own post by creating, so for example, you can click hello and you can insert a photo, but students are not allowed to upload their own photos. They can simply choose from a photo library that we provided. So after typing in the post, they can see their own post that's showing up on his personal page. And he can also reply or flag or like any of these other friends' posts. But here's a script that reminds students to look out for Kiki and Franklin's posts. So for example, here is a post from Franklin. He says, "We miss you at a concert, Jeremy." So Franklin is with Kiki at a concert, but Jeremy was not invited. So this kind of post might make Jeremy feel anxious or sad or left out. Then students can respond in any way to it. They can reply, maybe, oh, sorry, I can't join you. They can create any kind of replies, or he can like the post, or we can scroll out to, so here's another post from Kiki. So she says, "I just got the best present ever." So this kind of post might also make, might cause red flag feeling. So students can respond to like these kind of posts as well, to kind of like reflect on the concept they learn and how to deal with these potential red flag feelings in a positive and balanced way. And again, on this page, we will not give students any kind of guidance. They can do whatever they want. And after they finish the exploration, they can click continue to enter the final stage, which is the reflection stage. So in the reflection stage, we ask students to reflect on the actions they made on the previous section, which is exploring the timeline. And here we show students that here are some of the posts that might have caused Jeremy to experience red flag feelings. Did you notice any of them? So here we give students an opportunity to look at the posts that might cause red flag feelings to compare kind of what they have noticed in a timeline and what are the posts that they should be looking for. And here we have some extra open-ended questions for students to respond and reflect on the concepts and the actions they made. So for example, why might these posts cause Jeremy to have a red flag feeling? Do you remember seeing posts that might have caused Jeremy to feel good? What kind of posts and what could Jeremy do to feel better after experiencing a red flag feeling? So after students enter their responses, they can print out their answers and submit to the teacher. And that concludes one module. So there are some other modules, but other modules also follow the same structure that I just explained. So if you have a chance, do come into our website and check out more modules. So I will hand it over to Mandy to explain the research that we're doing regarding this TestDrive platform.
I was going to, oh, great. Thanks, Ian. So I'm going to just kind of quickly talk about some ways that you might be able to use social media TestDrive. So we were really trying to make the TestDrive modules as flexible as possible in terms of how people would use them. And so everything from conducting lessons in classroom settings to young people conducting them on their own to being used in a youth program like 4-H. So our suggested implementation, kind of an ideal situation would be to have these in-person sessions led by an educator. In that case, the educator could pre-teach many of the concepts. So for example, talk about some of the key terms that they'll see in the module and talk about some of the skills that they'll be taught so that they've done some advanced kind of thinking about this before they're introduced to those terms and skills in the module. That piece is really optional. We've been working to make these modules kind of stand on their own so that pre-teaching of concepts isn't an essential piece of it, but it is a way that you could possibly extend the learning. If you were to pre-teach, kind of the next step would be to have the learners themselves work through the module. And we have been piloting this in a variety of formats. So we've done it so that a young person is working through the module on his or her own. So self-paced, kind of following along with all of those pieces that Ellen just demonstrated for us. Another way that seems to work really well is having learners work through a module in pairs. In many cases, this kind of facilitates them talking to each other about the concepts. And in some cases, they're a little bit more willing to explore things, post comments, engage with the timeline, that sort of thing. We've also done it with small groups of young people, although I think you really wouldn't want to do more than 3 people going through a module on the same computer or tablet, just because we want to make sure that each young person has a chance to actually kind of work through a section of it and engage with the module. So if you were to facilitate in this sort of a way, you could also have a more in-depth group discussion. You could use those reflection questions as a guide for conversation, encourage young people to share some of what they thought about and how they responded to those questions. You can also further extend those conversations. I did want to point out that on the social media TestDrive website, we have an educator guide. This has both kind of a quick overview of each of the modules, including things like the specific learning objectives that you as an educator would want to have in mind as you're about to begin a particular module, to the specific terms that are covered in each module. But it also has, some discussion questions that you might want to use for that kind of more in-depth reflection. We also wanted to highlight the fact that you can pair a social media test drive module along with a common sense education lesson from their digital citizenship curriculum right on the social media test drive website. When you're viewing all of those tiles with the different test drive modules, you'll see a link to the common sense education lesson that module pairs with. So they're not exactly duplicating information, they're very complementary. So the common sense education lessons are really designed to be facilitated in a group in-person session. If you're working with young people more virtually, as many of us are in these pandemic times, there are adaptations that could be made to kind of fit that facilitation. But this is really kind of the ideal situation. Thank you. And can you go to the next one? I don't think I can control the slides. Okay, thanks. There are other options. There are other ways to facilitate too. And with all of you working in 4-H, you're working with young people through youth programs. Again, you could really kind of follow that same model that was just described and facilitate in person with groups of young people. But there are other options here. So the activities, the modules are really totally self-contained. So you could, if you're working with young people virtually, you could have them complete a module on their own. And then when they come back together online, you could do that group discussion, have those reflection conversations as a group. Another way that this might be used is with parents or caregivers working through modules together at home, or encouraging their child to work through modules. We actually do have a section on the social media test drive website, again, specifically for parents. You can go ahead to the next slide. And so this is a great resource for parents who want to work with their children on specific social media digital citizenship concepts. It's a great way, just as teachers and youth educators can do, parents can use these questions for reflection and further conversation about these concepts with their kids. So again, there's materials specifically for educators on the website, and there are tools and materials specifically for parents on the website. And the other thing that we really wanted to talk with you about, this is kind of our final section before the Q&A, is getting involved. We're at a point now where we have 12 modules developed. These have been developed with a strong research basis. We've been involving a variety of stakeholders all along the way in creating them, everyone from content experts at Common Sense to youth educators, such as those working in 4-H, like you all are, to young people themselves who've been giving us feedback on modules all along. But now we're really interested in building the evidence for test drive's effectiveness. And so, as I'm sure many of you know, there's a real push to use curricula that are found to be effective, that have research studies done, and that's what we're looking to do right now. So we're looking to really build the evidence for how effective test drive is. So we have 3 upcoming studies, and wanted to share this with you in case you are interested and able to get involved. All of these studies involve young people, so we're really looking for some help recruiting groups of young people to participate in one of these studies. So the first is rather short, so it's 30 to 45 minutes. It's just a survey, an online survey. And that will be conducted in January, so next month. A little bit later on, we are looking for groups of young people to complete 4 of our modules and complete surveys kind of along with those modules. That study is a little bit longer. That will take about 4 weeks because we're asking folks to do 1 module per week, and that will stretch out kind of across February, the month of February. And then our final study for right now is a kind of the larger scale outcome evaluation study. Studies 1 and 2 are kind of the lead up to the big outcome evaluation study. This will happen during April through mid-May. And again, we're asking for young people to complete 4 modules and surveys. And we'll also be doing kind of a follow-up, which is actually where we look and see if young people are actually enacting the behaviors that we're teaching them in social media test drive. So about a week after they've completed the last module of the 4 that they were asked to complete, we'll have them go into kind of a longer social media simulated timeline. And they're able to engage with the content in any way that they want to. And we'll be looking to see to what extent do young people actually enact those behaviors that we want to see. So for example, if they come across a comment or a post that looks like it's a cyberbullying comment or post, do they end up flagging it? Do they make a supportive comment to the target? These are specific skills that are taught in the How to Be an Upstander module. And same thing for content that kind of cuts across the different modules that will be included in this evaluation. So we're really excited to take this next step and build the evidence for TestDrive's effectiveness. And we'd love to do it with your help. So if you think that you might be able to help us connect with a group of young people for one of these studies, please contact me. That's my email address there at the bottom.
So I guess now we have a few minutes for some Q&A. If you have any questions for us, please feel free to enter them in the chat.
Yeah, a question's already popped up. So the target age group it's the age group that we're targeting for test drive participants in general. So it's 9 to 13 years of age. Great question, thank you.
And also, I think, Andy, if there is a way we could post the slides somewhere for this webinar, so people have access to the information, that would be great.
Absolutely, we can send it around once we get it converted, or post it to your website or our website or some combination.
Great.
I have a question. Thank you for your work and for sharing this. As you were showing the website, it looked like it was for, the interface was for adults. What would we as educators direct the youth to? Would they get a link to the start of the module? What would that look like?
Yeah, so our website is actually, you're right, it's more targeted towards educators, parents, or any adult who would like to use our modules with the youth. You could probably direct them either to the first page of each module, or that page where we had all of the 12 modules, and you can ask them, you know, go into the ups and downs module and do it for homework or something like that. So the youth mainly see the modules, the module pages that Ellen had demonstrated during her walkthrough.
Got it, thank you.
And just something to add, we have a different website that's for educators. Yoon?
Yeah, so there's actually a section on our website it's titled For Educators, and it hosts our educator guide And also there's a training video you can look at, and also any frequently asked questions about our program. Is there any cost to using this material? Actually, no. These lessons and the educator guide and all of our materials are available free and on the internet, and it's public and anyone can access it.
Do you maybe want to pull up the website again? Could show
Oh,
it.
sure. Yeah, of course. Actually, what I'll do is I'll just pull up our last slide. So here is our contact information. So our website link and also our email address, as well as Mandy's email address if you are interested in participating in one of our research studies. I'm actually unable to see the chat while I am sharing my screen. So if there are any further questions, Mandy, could you read them?
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye on it.
Okay.
And I would say too that we have been working with young people to have them go through modules. We've been doing some formative evaluation all the way along. And they do enjoy the modules. It takes usually 10 to 15 minutes to complete one module. As you can imagine, they're not necessarily entering super lengthy comments in the open-ended questions in the reflection section, but they do engage with it.
We can pause and see if there's another question now in the chat.
So the question is there any concern that it encourages social media starting earlier with younger age groups? I'm thinking of what I should tell parents if they bring up this worry. So that's a good question. I would say that, so we've been kind of testing this out, and of course, Yoon and Ellen, you can definitely jump in here too. We have been testing this out with young people ages 9 to 13. And I don't think we're really telling them anything or exposing them to anything that they haven't already seen. They might not have their own social media accounts, but they know what it is. And I think for the most part, they don't have most of them don't have social media accounts. Although YouTube is probably the most common social media platform that they're using, although they're mostly consuming messages there. They're watching videos. They're really not creating content. They're maybe liking a video and rarely commenting. So they're kind of dabbling in some of it in that way. But I think if anything, it's really kind of equipping them with skills before they begin using social media. And that's really the intention here. That's why we have 9 to 13-year-olds as kind of our target population, because it's when they start getting interested in it, they've seen it a little bit from peers or from older siblings often, but they haven't really started using it yet themselves. So the goal is to kind of equip them with skills before they get started and to help set some pro-social norms about how people interact and engage in social media.
Well, if there are no further questions, thank you everyone so much for taking the time to listen to this webinar. And please let us know, email us if you have any further questions. And there's also a lot of information that is available on our website as well. And thank you, Andy, so much for hosting us today.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, it's a pleasure, and we'll hear more as things develop, and thank you for a really great informative presentation. Enjoy the rest of the day, everyone.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.